This is Mac OS Ken.
Never mind about the whole China thing. Yeah, I know. A boring iPhone is an exciting iPhone for one firm, and Godzilla is coming soon to your living room. It is Monday, the 11th of September, 2023. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. So remember the whole iPhone ban in China that wiped out over $200 billion of Apple's market value in about 48 hours? Yeah, never mind about that. The Wall Street Journal, Reuters, and Bloomberg all ran stories last week that had some segments of the Chinese government saying not only could their employees no longer use iPhones for official purposes, they couldn't even bring iPhones with them to work. And it was only going to get worse, said one report, and it was only going to get bigger, said, I think, the same report, actually. And we knew it was true because it came from unnamed sources, people familiar with the matter. Secret so-and-so said to know a thing or two about a thing or two. Or not. The piece from Apple Insider on Friday had China issuing a formal yet vague statement about the alleged iPhone ban. Apple Insider says formal yet vague. To me, it just sounds formal. According to the report, the China Foreign Ministry has officially stated that products and services of any country are welcome as long as they comply with China's laws and regulations. From pulling VPNs from China's App Store to moving iCloud data of Chinese customers to China and a number of other questionable actions, if there is one thing that a lot of Apple watchers don't like about Apple, it's the fact that the Cupertino company complies with China's laws and regulations. But it gave people something else to worry about for a couple of days. Lord knows we don't have enough of those. Talk of an iPhone ban in China has helped lead one investment bank to trim its 12-month Apple target. According to a piece from Apple Insider, investment firm JP Morgan believes that Apple's current problems with the Chinese government will spread and that there are no material upgrades to tempt buyers in the iPhone 15 range. Never mind the fact that we haven't seen the iPhone 15 yet, and that the problems with the Chinese government were only rumored when they wrote their note and later formally, though vaguely, denied. Addressing what's likely to be new in the iPhone 15, JP Morgan indicates not much. According to the firm's note, the primary change for the average consumer will likely only relate to the updated casing, which is expected to be titanium for the Pro models relative to stainless steel in the current generation, giving iPhone 15 a different look and feel than the current generation. The way the bank sees it, the volume cycle is likely to be driven by replacements/upgrades of the large installed base. That is despite their expectation that prices are going up across the board for this year's iPhone 15 line versus last year's range of iPhone 14 models. Now, I will say this is something that I had been wondering about. JP Morgan analysts think Apple will increase prices across the board to make the Pro phones more attractive. The wider the gap between the two, the harder it is for buyers to justify the jump from the consumer side to the Pro end. It seems a line of thinking that is both cynical and sensible. The note also addressed the goose chase that is/was the China ban, but I'd be cool giving that a rest if you're cool with it. As for the target reduction, the investment firm is still aiming very high on Apple shares. JP Morgan has a positive rating on those. They used Friday's note to lower their 12-month price target on the shares from $235 to $230. Apple starts trading today just above $178, so yeah, JP Morgan is pretty positive on Apple. Despite the JP Morgan thesis, there is another call for most iPhone prices to stay as is, or are. I told you last week of Morgan Stanley's belief that most iPhone prices will not rise this year, Analysts at the firm think prices for the anticipated iPhone 15 Pro Max will go up by $150 versus last year's iPhone 14 Pro Max. That's thanks to the anticipated inclusion of periscope lenses for the rear-facing camera. For the rest, though, they expect prices to stay the same, like for like. That's due to 2023's weaker smartphone market and general economic uncertainty. Singing a strikingly similar tune is the analytics firm TrendForce. Overall, said the firm in a post on Friday, TrendForce predicts a stable pricing landscape for the iPhone 15, 15 Plus, and 15 Pro, largely mirroring last year's figures. The Pro Max, however, is a different story. That is, of course, because of the anticipated periscope lens. While Morgan Stanley expects an increase of $150, TrendForce goes lower. They're looking for an increase of up to $100. Should this price adjustment materialize, the Post points out it would mark the first such move since the era of the iPhone X. JP Morgan is not the only investment bank saying there won't be much new in the iPhone 15 line. Still, Jefferies analyst Andrew Yerkwitz argues that where Apple hardware is concerned, boring is kind of awesome. Seeking Alpha has Yerkwitz saying in a note, Apple has been very consistent in its build quality, software updates, and in turn market share gains. Moreover, it has also consistently showed that incremental improvements are a fair trade for incremental price increases. His note goes on to say, at this late stage in the broader hardware market, mobile, tablet, PC, with incremental changes, with a focus on what matters, build quality, ease of use, and camera, Apple is doing what it needs to do. Mr. Yerkwitz has a buy rating on Apple shares. His price target on the shares is $220. So there's a story out there that would normally annoy me, but this time it seems like a good idea. It comes under a MacRumors headline, Apple retail staff drilled to recommend iPhone 15 USB-C charging accessories at point of sale. Before all the talk of the periscope lens, one of the biggest, most obvious expectations around the iPhone 15 line was moving it away from Apple's proprietary Lightning port for charging and onto the more widely used USB-C. According to MacRumors, Apple retail employees are reportedly being drilled to emphasize to customers at the point of sale that the switch to USB-C means the new devices cannot be charged with existing Lightning charging cables that they may already own. Now, if you keep up with Apple stuff, and I suspect you do, you might find this attempt to sell or upsell kind of annoying. That's especially true if you've already got a Mac or an iPad that uses USB-C. But here's the thing, not everybody does. I have a family member who's got an older iPad, an iPhone, and an Apple Watch. The Apple Watch was her most recent purchase, and she loves it, and was amazed how much she loves the wireless charging. So she decided to buy a MagSafe charger for her iPhone from Apple. A couple of days later, it was delivered. She went to use it and couldn't because she didn't have a USB-C adapter. She's never had anything that used USB-C. Hard to imagine she's the only one. The sell or upsell will probably still be annoying to lots of people. This year, though, I think it makes sense. Assuming iPhone makes it to USB-C, which we all kind of assume it will. If you're curious what last week's updates for Mac, iPad, iPhone, and Apple Watch were about, they were put up to block Pegasus. I told you last week of the updates, which addressed security vulnerabilities tied to Image I/O and the Wallet app. At the time, Apple said it had heard word that those vulnerabilities were under active exploit, hence the security-only update. Now, a piece from TechCrunch has a bit more on the exploits. According to that, Citizen Lab, an internet watchdog group that investigates government malware, stumbled across a zero-click vulnerability last week. Zero clicks are particularly pernicious since the hacker's target doesn't have to click on or download anything for a hacking attempt to be successful. According to Citizen Lab, the vulnerability they found was a link in an exploit chain meant to deliver NSO Group's Pegasus malware. As for the other exploit, that one was found by Apple itself. Based on what Citizen Lab wrote in a blog post, TechCrunch says it appears Apple may have found the second vulnerability while investigating the first. One Apple watcher who tends to be in the know says, no M3-powered MacBooks this year. Rumors have had the next step in Apple Silicon, the M3 processor, turning up in something in Apple's laptop line before year's end. Now TF International analyst Ming-Chi says he does not think so. In a post on Twitter on Friday, the analyst said, it seems that Apple will not launch new MacBook models equipped with M3 series processors before the end of this year. The 15-inch MacBook Air has turned up in Apple's Refurbished stores in the UK and Europe. In addition to the United Kingdom, MacRumors says so far these countries include Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, Poland, and Switzerland. Availability will likely expand to the US, Canada, and additional countries within the next few weeks, according to the report. Apple's first unionized store in the UK has reached a deal on pay increases. It was Thursday, actually, when Glasgow's Apple Retail Workers Union took to Twitter to say Apple Glasgow reached an agreement on pay after negotiations. Members voted to reject Apple's pay model and have instead won minimum increases and compensation for all members of staff, as well as improved pay for the majority of staff, with most receiving 7%. In a follow-on tweet, the union said in part that is in line with public sector increases. Apple wanted to offer no increased compensation for some staff, and the union has been able to prevent that. And finally today, color me shocked. Apple's Godzilla series has a premiere date, and it's really not that far away. The Cupertino company issued a press release Friday dropping a trailer for the show and giving it a mid-November start date. Everything we've heard about the show, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters so far, has focused on Godzilla. Makes sense. He's the big one. But there is a more than 800-pound gorilla in the Monsterverse, King Kong. While it does not look like he's going to turn up in the series, it looks like the series will be pretty tightly woven with Kong Skull Island. Not only does the trailer feature clips of that movie, Monarch actor Anders Holm plays a younger version of the character played by Skull Island's John Goodman. He's not the only one getting two actors for the character of one. Kurt Russell and his real-life son Wyatt Russell will both play Army Officer Lee Shaw in a period spanning decades. Also, it's got Godzilla. There are 10 episodes in the first season of Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. The first two hit Apple TV Plus on Friday, the 17th of November. The rest will land on subsequent Fridays through the 12th of January. You can catch the first of what I hope will be many trailers on YouTube. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSCan. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macoscan.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.